I do agree that in our country is way too racially divided, and we hate the people that don't agree with the things that we are, and we really have not come to a place that we can value each other for our own strengths. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, Reba.
Thank you for joining me again today and for joining me on my trip to New York.
It's been so much fun. Yesterday was a blast.
I agree. What was your favorite thing?
So we went on a bus tour, which was fantastic. Almost got our heads decapitated by the
So
lights.
crazy.
Yeah, it was fun. But just seeing this area of New York and just knowing Moho and Soho, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, I did. Well, I didn't know about the Moho. I knew about the Soho, but
Then in the evening, we got to go to Parade and see Ben Platt himself on a stage for a very long time.
it's my first time I've ever seen him live. Obviously,
Wow.
I've seen YouTube videos of him and stuff, but even coming to Dear Evan when it was on Broadway, I was supposed to see Ben Platt that night, and he wasn't there.
Stop.
So we found out when we got there and sat in the seats that he was not going to be
Because
performing
when
that
we
night.
sat down for Parade, she said, I wonder what I would do if Ben Platt didn't come out. And I was like, haha, wait, what? Like, that's a thing?
Yes,
they
it
don't warn
happens.
you, and they don't give you a refund.
No, you just have to take
Pipes
the
of
understudy.
Broadway.
I know. I will say that the understudy, who I don't even remember who it was at this particular time, but he was really good too.
Yeah, but not...
seeing Ben Platt last night, I am positive he was no Ben Platt, because otherwise I would remember his name, probably, right? The acting of what he did, the man's name that he portrays is Leo Frank.
Yeah.
And I went back last night, obviously, and did my research.
history.
So I looked up Leo Frank and that trial. And they talk in the police report that part of the reason that they arrested him is because when they came to his house, that he was nervous and agitated, and he was answering questions before they asked them, like he was really nervous. And so they thought that he was probably guilty because of the way that he reacted. And he portrayed that so great. And the character arc from this love story that Rebecca was talking about showing that he, in the beginning, was very focused on work and didn't really give his wife any credibility that she did anything around the house or that what she was making decisions with really mattered. And I almost seemed a little annoyed by her. And then, as time goes on and he's spent time in jail, he starts to realize that he does love her, and he starts to really take a lot of value in what she has done for him while he is in prison. And I just thought that part of it was beautiful, and it just seeing him change as a character and grow and really become a different man during the time that he's in jail, which it was breathtaking. Yeah. He did such a great job. I think he should win an award for this. I really do. I would nominate him. He's great.
100%. And not just because, he's Ben Platt. Because when we went, I was like, okay, he's the big name, but he deserves to be the big name.
Right.
And not just because of his vocals, because of his acting. Yeah. And I feel like Dear Evan Hansen, it was a very specific character, and to be able to break out of that and play almost an opposite character. And I would say, it was super cool to see his manliness grow in the sense in the show, where it's he was not as attended to his wife, but the more that he was realizing who she was, the more the manliness came out of him.
And he actually became more of an attractive person, if that makes sense. It was in the beginning, you're like, okay, he's kind of snivelly, weaselly, or whatever. Quiet, and then as he grows, because the wife actually brings this out of him, he actually became a more attractive man.
Yeah, and it almost shows couples through adversity. Adversity is not something that we should be running away from, but running into with whoever you're with. I think it was a very beautiful story in that sense.
Yeah. His leading lady opposite him is a woman named Michaela Diamond, and she also did an amazing job. I think she will be a name that we will come to know if you don't know her already, but they sounded so great together. There is a duet that was just, in fact, I turned around and looked at, who are you?
Rebecca.
I looked at Rebecca after they got done, and I go, Now that's a song. Okay, so first of all, the set was entirely different because, as she said, but it was still fascinating.
Yeah.
It started with this screen that was actually projection that was moving, that was actually the place that honors him in Georgia.
Yeah.
And so you were seeing the historical landmark, and then before it even starts, it zooms in on the sign so you can read it, which was funny because Rebecca's like, well, spoiler alert, like I already know what's going to happen.
They kind of say.
Yeah.
And the dirt underneath the stage.
Yes, and so they built up this platform, and you could see underneath it the red clay of Georgia.
And it was like lit up, but we noticed it after the play started because I think it was the lights were down.
Right.
So it was like this, maybe like, I don't know,
a foot
or 2 foot platform. And when the light came on, it was very like artfully in there, and there were little things in there too, and it just said it.
Yes.
Because you felt like it was like there. You were like, there.
Yeah, so that was fascinating to all of a sudden get pulled in, especially since that theme song was the Red Hills of Georgia. Yeah. So that was really interesting. The music I thought was way more powerful than New York, New York. And I also thought the ensemble voices, New York, New York was about dancing.
Yeah.
And a show.
And they killed it.
Whereas this is much more about the power of the ensemble.
And
the lyrics. It was beautiful. Beautiful. The costumes, they didn't hit me, but I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's what it was supposed to do.
I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I do
it's like
too.
Casual people in Georgia in 1913
right.
pimped out. What did you think about they projected like the location and time of when things happened? That helped me tremendously.
Yes, I agree. That was so smart
faces,
about the way
when an actor would come on for the first time, they would put like this
historical
face
right.
of the person. It might not be. It
might have been who they really were.
And the name. So that kind of helped you with the story plot because there were quite a few characters in it to kind of know you're bound, like where you are, kind of a thing in the story. That helps me.
You said something about going to see it again. I do think that this is the kind of play that I think I'll enjoy the second time more.
Ooh.
Because I think that now that I understand it, like even the fact of like looking at the people on their pictures, the historical real people, I think that now that I know who they are in the story, I can understand why they're in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what would you say about my northness and your southness? Yeah. How did this play hit you in that sense?
Yeah. So the play opens with the scene of a Confederate soldier, and then all of a sudden the whole cast sings a love song to Georgia about the Red Hills of Georgia. It was very off-putting for me because it almost made me like be defensive for myself, if that makes sense.
Like almost feel like the enemy a little bit of the play. And even in the very beginning, they
dropped the Confederate flag.
And the kids are waving it, and it's a ton of Caucasian people, older, younger on stage.
Yeah.
And they definitely set it up where you're kind of the enemy. So it's interesting that you felt that.
From almost the very moment we started. And I did not like it. And so then as the time goes on and Leo Frank's some of this dialogue is that he just doesn't feel comfortable there, and it's just not the same as it was where he grew up because now he's this Jewish man who lives in the South, and his wife, even though she is Jewish, is saying things like, "Well, I'm a Georgia girl though, and I love it," and then in the background they're singing this Red Hills of Georgia thing.
Yeah,
I realized that it had to do more with how the Southerners felt about this Jewish Yankee. And I think it was every bit as much about the fact that he was a Yankee as it was that he was a Jew, where I had all the things that I'd read about it and everything made it seem like it was about the anti-Semitism instead of the fact that he had a little bit of that Yankee in him. So I don't know, but for me, it made me feel uncomfortable, and I think that I did not invest in it right away, and so that's the reason I didn't cry, because I felt, I don't know, like...
kind of called like attacked a little bit. Yeah.
So,
which it's a very interesting topic because do we believe that history should be told? Yes. And do we believe that theater is a powerful way to tell history? Yes. But then do we also believe it is so powerful that we need to be so aware of how we're explaining it and the tact that we're using? And I do feel like it was maybe more politically leaning.
Well, especially because at the very end, when Ben Platt comes out to make their annual fundraising plea, he said, he said,
"Thank you for coming to This Is Still Happening," or something like that.
Yeah, like, thank you for listening to how we tell the story in a time that it's still happening, or something, right?
Yeah.
I do agree that in our country is way too racially divided, and we hate the people that don't agree with the things that we are, and we really have not come to a place that we can value each other for our own strengths. What I don't like is being thrown into a group where people prejudge me and think that because I was raised in the South that I A, B, and C, because that's not necessarily true. And I think we don't give people benefits of a doubt for who we are and what kind of people we are. We just automatically assume. And I'm talking about both sides. We all assume. And I don't like that last night became a political thing for me. That's what I didn't like.
And I guess last night was it was a story of what's happening now, because now it's jumped both aisles when it comes to assuming what one side believes or assuming what the other, and then hating them for it. So even last night, even if it was less about him being a Jew and more about, or being Jewish and more about him being a Yankee, that's kind of nowadays. It's less about your skin color, it's more about, oh, you're a Republican or you're like liberal.
Right, absolutely.
That's interesting.
So, and I don't know, probably most people aren't feeling that way, but for me, I think it really caused me to not get into it as quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good. And I think you're an active watcher. And I think that's something sometimes, especially in today's day and age, we are just intakers. Mm-hmm. We just take in anything but you are actually letting it hit your heart, hit your brain, and you're taking away a bigger message. I think that was the message they were saying.
I do too.
So I don't even think you're wrong.
Yeah. I liked it. I didn't love it, like, Wicked, which is my favorite, and Showboat and all those. But I'm still going to give it higher than I did New York. I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Wow.
So, Ben Platt.
I mean, it's Ben Platt.
Yeah, and his songs, people. Go see it.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
I feel like my ratings don't matter, because I'm just going to say
let's hear
9 out
of
10 for everything. You know what I mean?
Is that what you gave New York to, a 9 out of 10?
I think I said 9.5, which I would give this one 9.5, because it's such an experience.
Where are you going to go from there,
10.
So we're going to have to give 11 to something.
Yeah. How about mine is like different? Mine's just like...
Her scale is sliding from wherever she wants to.
It was so good, though. It was definitely more serious. It was definitely a historical story that I think it needs to be told. I think could be told maybe in a slightly different way, maybe less leaning toward kind of the themes that they took it, making, I don't know. I definitely think history needs to make you uncomfortable, but I don't think in the way that made you uncomfortable. Right, I don't think it should... one-sided, which it's New York. Like, welcome to, we know where we are, I
know, and that's what I thought at first, and then that's why I was thinking, well, how would this story play in Chicago then? I don't know.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah. I'd love to hear if you guys have seen it anywhere else, because I know the play has actually been out. This is a revival. So I know that there are theater groups out there who've done it. Have you ever seen it done by anybody else? Have you now seen it with Ben Platt? How many of you are looking forward to seeing Ben Platt in person? So what are your thoughts about this? Are those of you from the North, do you feel about it differently than me being raised in the South? Like, how are you feeling? So we'd love to hear more about that. We have 2 shows to go to today, so we'll have 2 more updates for you in the next couple of weeks. Until then, we'd love to have you follow us, share, talk to people about this, and say, hey, you want to know what good theater is? You got to follow these people. Until next time, this is just me.
And me.
Talking to you.
From the wings. From New York.